One thing that's been sorely neglected during the conversation around this federal election campaign in Canada is the big picture issues, the existential issues, even. And I don't use that word lightly. I mean the issues that put at risk the future existence, really, of the nation of Canada. We've been talking about a whole lot of candidate shaming stories, gotcha moment stories, and a lot of the campaign promises are boutique promises. What I'm going to do for this group and that group to increase or decrease the money in their wallets by a few $100s, so on and so forth. And all the parties, they're all guilty of doing the same thing. None of them talking about these big picture issues. And I've got a few I want to present to you here. One of them is the broader economy vis-a-vis our natural resources sector, our oil and gas sector. Now, there are a whole lot of voices out there that just want to shut the whole thing down. And it's really something when you step back and go, we're really blessed to have this wealth here. We are blessed to have these natural resources that many other countries would absolutely love to have. And what we instead do is we hold it back. We put up roadblocks, barriers, sometimes literally, other times figuratively. Bill C-69, liberal legislation, has been criticized by many people across the political spectrum, and particularly people in the oil and gas sector. They say this basically just eliminates our industry. It means we can't move forward on new projects. I mean, imagine a family doing things to actively undermine the breadwinner's ability to get things done. And whenever I think about these big picture issues, it makes me think of what Don Walker, the CEO of Magna International, had to say the other year when he said he's really worried about the broad competitiveness of Canada eroding. You know, you can stand back and you can say, well, I'm not one of those Bay Street guys, or I'm not a big business person, so I don't care about these issues. You go, hold on a second, really what you're talking about is the atrophying of our economy at a time when there are other countries that are actually seeing their economies doing well, growing, becoming more dynamic. It is an incredibly dangerous thing to see us head in this direction on this file. Now, speaking of other countries, one other major existential threat to Canada on the foreign policy file is the current things that China is doing to undermine, well, not just Canada, but many other countries in the world. The Belt and Road Initiative, the Asian Investment Infrastructure Bank, that last one we are a member of. We joined it quietly, much to the chagrin of some people. Andrew Scheer rightfully says he's going to pull us out of it. These are all these apparatuses that China, under President Xi Jinping, are creating to replace the United States as the leading global superpower in the world. And they want to bring a whole bunch of countries under their wing to push us more in their direction. And we're seeing day by day there are stories in Canada, whether it's about the Huawei file, things going on at Canadian universities, questions about pro-Beijing elements in Canadian society, actively trying to shout down and suppress pro-Hong Kong, pro-democracy activists, trying to praise authoritarian communism in the streets of Canada, or stuff you're seeing in the United States with the NBA, basically siding with the authoritarian approach of communist China. Incredibly troubling stuff. And this is not just a day-to-day file. This is not something you say, oh, Trudeau is weak on this specific moment. This is an incredibly big picture issue. This is about really the future of our country, not just in terms of one specific policy file, but whether or not our country has a future. When you have a country like China that wants our intellectual property, they want some of our powerhouse corporations. There have been bids to do things like by Aecon. Previously, a Chinese state-owned enterprise was able, under the Stephen Harper government, to buy up a company in our natural resources sector. Thankfully, we've put the lid on that. That's not going to happen again. Many other questions about these issues, wanting to buy up our land and more. Espionage in Canada. You know, the other year we had Canada 150, and it was a beautiful celebration. It was great for everybody to come together, nonpartisan, and celebrate our great country. But there wasn't a lot of talk about how to get to the next 150. It seems like a wild thing to say, you know, Canada 300, we're so far away from that. But if you want there to be a Canada 300, if you want Canada to be the country it is, somewhat resembling what it is today, the things that make this country great, you have to talk about it and plan for it now. And on these files, embracing our oil and gas sector, not letting Chinese communist authoritarian values hold sway over us and our business sector and our academic circles, you've got to plant those seeds today. There's another big picture issue that I think we're heading in the wrong direction on right now. That is questions of national identity. Before there can be national unity, there has to be a national identity. But the problem is, anytime someone talks about all of that, they bring it down to the lowest common denominator. They vilify people about it, and they want to bring in phrases like racism and so forth, as if a national identity has to involve race. It doesn't. I don't think it does at all. I think the Canadian national identity can bring everybody in, and there can be a place at the table for everybody, and we all are unified behind some sort of Canadian values. There are a reason why there are people all across the world who say, I'm not so hot on what's going on in my own country, but I've heard what's going on in Canada, and I want to be a part of it, and I want to join in on it, and I want to contribute to it, and I want to strengthen it. And I always think it's shameful of us that we're letting those people down by not talking more about a Canadian national identity. And it's going to be hard to have national unity if we don't have something to rally behind. But Prime Minister Justin Trudeau famously told the New York Times back in 2015, just shortly before he became Prime Minister, he says, no core identity in Canada. There is no mainstream. We are the first post-national state. Wow. But there are other countries out there, China, as I mentioned, Russia, a number of other countries who actually do feel that they are strong national states. So if we're a post-national state, if we don't do any of that, but there are these other strong identities, well, can't they crowd us out? Can't they swallow us up in cultural ways or in other ways? I mean, these are really important issues that we have to address right now. The politicians aren't talking about them. And that's a shame, because this is really about the future of the country that we know and love.